The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. After leaving the mountain, Jesus and his disciples made their way through Galilee, and he did not want anyone to know because he was instructing his disciples. He was telling them, "The Son of Man will be delivered into the hands of men. They will put him to death, and 3 days after he has been put to death, he will rise again." But they did not understand what he said and were afraid to ask him. They came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" They said nothing, because they had been arguing which of them was the greatest. So he sat down, called the 12 to him and said, "If anyone wants to be first, he must make himself last of all and servant of all." He then took a little child, set him in front of them, put his arms round him, and said to them, "Anyone who welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And anyone who welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me." And this is the gospel of the Lord. I wonder, did you hear that threat in the first reading? The godless say to themselves, "Let us lie in wait for the virtuous person, since he annoys us and opposes our way of life." Yes, the prophets were persecuted because they spoke the truth. They were telling it as it is. They were questioning the life and the lifestyle of the people of Israel. So the godless said, "Let us lie in wait for them." The prophets were persecuted. Jesus Christ, later on, when he came to preach the truth and to question the lack of faith and the lifestyle of the people, he too was opposed, persecuted, and indeed, as he foretold in the gospel that you heard, he was put to death. Now, if you and I are the followers of Jesus, we cannot remain deaf and blind and fail to challenge the culture of our day, a culture that has been named by the late Cardinal Carlo Martini as the secular city. What is this secular city? Well, like the fish in the water, surrounded by water, you and I are immersed in the secular city. And the sins of the secular city are incredulity, idolatry, and inhumanity. Incredulity. That is the lack of faith the wholesale abandonment of God and religion and the practice of the faith. So we recognize that, don't we? And what happens when the majority of a people or of a city abandon their God and the practice of their faith? What happens? History tells us. You see, we all need a God to worship. And if we don't worship the one true God, then idolatry comes in and takes his place. Idolatry is the worship of false gods. So, in practice, for us, for our time, idolatry, instead of adoring the one true God, people adore wealth and power and pleasure. And the most destructive of all in any society is the adoration of wealth and power. Such people are prepared. They're prepared to break all the rules and to break all the bones if necessary to get what they want. You heard St. James in the second reading. You want something and you haven't got it, so you are prepared to kill. You have an ambition that you cannot satisfy, so you fight to get your way by force. So incredulity then, which is the abandonment of the true God, idolatry, which is the worship of the gods of money and ambition and power and so on, and then the third, inhumanity. All three go together, but perhaps the most striking of these, the most horribly repellent and loathsome, is inhumanity. You and I know what inhumanity means, because don't we find ourselves at times saying what that person did was absolutely inhuman? Now, consider the sheer inhumanity of violence. Consider the diabolical scourge of drug pushing in our society, and consider the ruthless gang wars and punishments meted out by so-called drug barons. And consider the bully boys in some of our estates who act like God-appointed policemen and self-appointed judges. There is the picture of what inhumanity means. And we don't look at the pictures totally, 100% out there, because all of us, you and me, all of us to some extent, have played our part, our own personal part, in the creation of this secular city in which God has no place and in which inhumanity is rampant. Yes, I mean, it is true, and you know it as well as I do, that many large cities, not only here but in the world, have lost the sense of God. But it must be said that this secular city, as it is called, to some extent is within each one of us. And we must recognize that. And I must ask myself, Is there inhumanity within me? And how much space does it have there? Is there, and these are the telltale signs, is there lack of respect for my brothers and sisters? Is there lack of respect for life? In the past week, in Dublin and elsewhere, almost once a day, we're reading of horrible and cold-blooded murders. Now, I cannot end without saying this, even if it may sound like a contradiction. Those who abandon God and look for happiness in the false and deceitful gods of money or sex or pleasure or unwholesome ambition, what they are really looking for, of course, is happiness. Which means that what they're really looking for is the one true God who alone can bring happiness and who alone can answer their restlessness and their searching. And I myself have never come across a more clear and stark statement of this in the writings of the great convert and writer G.K. Chesterton, who says, "The man knocking at the door of a brothel is looking for God." Think about it.